All right, we just finished episode 2, and personally, I mean, episode 1 was great, and it was exciting, and it was the culmination of a lot of work, but episode 2 had some serious magic, and I felt like you guys hit a stride in roleplay, and of course, Chad, and the way that he DM'd that session allowed some breath for roleplay and character development. I can't wait to hear what your favorite moments of the session were, and there were a lot of them. There were a ton of them. And there was no combat.
No.
The whole session.
Yeah, I guess
It was
that's
all role play, and sometimes the best
game.
sessions.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I'm here to throw dice and throw knives.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. How'd you guys feel with the session?
Great.
Yeah, I'm exhausted,
Yeah.
emotionally
Yes.
roughed up.
Yes,
Yeah,
right?
that felt
Yeah.
phenomenal, but like dude, you know,
Yeah,
you think you're
exactly.
always still.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, as I guess the narrator in Sky that gets to just make beats that you guys, you know, build upon. It was extravagant to watch you guys truly experience emotions, and as a DM, you know, there's seriously combat is so much fun. People like to throw dice and hit stuff, but those are the kind of moments I live for as a DM. Is watching somebody create real memories at a board table where you guys feel real feelings, and you guys blew me away with just how invested I was in hearing your story. So thank you guys for that, for breathing life into just something that I've had the pleasure of making chapters, but you write every word.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, what a great way to describe DMing too.
Kidding.
Damn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yoink.
So good.
Slowly.
So good. Copyright 2022. Chad Rowe. Last time we talked about where your own character developed. I'd love to hear you guys talk about a development that you saw in somebody else. And so something that surprised you or was different than you expected or inspired you from a roleplay moment in this episode.
It was a small moment, but like I love the fact that Yokai over here like legitimately almost saw me like play my hand. You know, she's seeing things that may be slightly out of character for just a wandering painter, and that was really cool how you played that. That was awesome.
I mean, likewise, it was cool to see you kind of like in an element where you just get to this level where that's why I made the joke, like, oh look, he's just unnaturally good at a game he's never played. You know, it's just like that kind of stuff where it's just like he can just adapt to any situation, and he's like, I'm good at this now.
so
And you're like, oh cool. Well, good.
Thank you.
And as the DM, I have you guys roll off on a couple games, and after watching how it can be just an interpretation. When you were playing with the individual at the end, I kept thematically. Flamel, thank you. I forgot it. I kept thematically just saying he won because I envisioned, Knarf throwing every game to just amp that person's confidence. From what I've experienced and how your character development has been, it's like how people work. And guess what? You get people confident, they'll speak more. And I just thought that was really cool to watch you literally play off that so naturally.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to do. Like straight up, it felt like Casino Royale or something. I'm just sitting here. It's like I'm doing it, but I'm also just like, fuck, this is working out.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't even know if you were really like very vocal about that's what you were doing, but I totally got the vibe that that's what you were doing.
Oh
too.
yeah, good.
It's awesome.
So what about? I want to hear Magvar. What was someone's here that surprised you?
Okay, so I have two in particular, and I don't know why. I just assumed that someone at the table would not make a sad boy with a horrible origin story, but more allusions to Mickey's backstory. I think was like, we just uncovered like a very deep well that I wasn't, like a hole that I wasn't aware that I was like standing next to. It's like, I don't really know what's going to be at the bottom of that. And my second moment would be when it seems like Yokai only has like her backward step into something space is like a place of rage, and when there's like nothing to point that at, like I detected a feeling of helplessness. I don't know if that's
he
right.
said yokai, not Beth.
Yeah.
I was like, how's your mail being read?
But we need to sleep now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Anyone else on that topic?
Yeah, I mean, just cosign about Mickey.
Yeah.
Like, Dara did not expect that. Kassidy did not expect that either. I was like, ooh. Like,
Right?
you know, that was really cool to see. And I'm like really stoked to poke that bear some more.
Yeah.
Big time.
And real quick before we
Dang.
change it or anything,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
right here, like I literally was like emotional when you two were doing your thing, you know?
Oh.
And like it was just wild to
God.
see because I'm
Yeah.
just like shit. Like, are we still playing the game? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening here? You know, like I was invested, and I'm like sitting right here playing, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man,
that,
you were
That would
good.
100% be like if I could choose like a moment or a surprise. Like it was definitely that moment, and I think like I'm surprised we're not all fighting to talk about it because I just feel like it was just like so real and like surprising. Like, you know, not that like we ever come in here and think like I'm gonna like connect with this person or that person, but just to see this like real connection in your characters and that like vulnerability a little bit and stuff, especially with like Dara, who's obviously has this like very strong, you know, sense of self, you know, and I just thought that was like really inspiring.
Yeah, that's a perfect caveat into my next question, which is, I mean, people who watch our channel aren't strangers to watching people cry on camera. It's no secret, or get emotional or have really super kind of deep emotional experiences for playing this game that we know and love. How difficult is that, or how hard is it to get to that vulnerable spot, and where is that balance between like your own emotions and your character's emotions and just talking about that? Because again, we got here honestly quicker than I thought we would for a new sort of stream and a new group, but it just kind of is a testament to how close you all are as friends, and obviously we've all been living in very close quarters for a week,
Yeah,
so
that
maybe
was
it's a
not
little
a joke.
fatigue, yeah. Maybe it's,
When we said, yeah, we're used to it.
yeah,
Living room bed.
yeah,
In your bed.
yeah. But honestly, like how is that for you, and how was that for you, and how difficult is it to be vulnerable like that?
Don't want to speak for every tattooer in the room, but we do that for a living, pretty much. We listen to people tell very emotional stories every single day for the rest of our lives. So, I mean, we listen to somebody's story just even in a consultation, and they trust us with this little part of themselves that, you know, means something a lot to them, and we have to, like, keep it to ourselves and try and turn it into something that's going to be hopefully healing and giving like a tiny little bit of closure to something, whether it's, you know, the ever so heavy memorial tattoo, or even like a celebration of something, or, you know, in remembrance of a life event, you know, like we eat this all day long, you know, and we have to find a way to kind of channel that into not being like apathetic or cold, but like a little bit stoic, that like I think we're no stranger to emotions. But occasionally, like, relating with somebody is even better than just being like, oh, that sucks, and just keep tattooing. You know, you're like, yeah, that actually, something similar happened to me. Or, you know, I also recently lost something that I loved. Or this, you know, I've been through something similar. And I think that kind of feeding off emotion is something that, like, we've all trained ourselves to do, and, like, allow ourselves to be vulnerable sometimes in certain doses, you know? So it's like, yeah, you start to get emotional, and you almost, like, catch yourself. You're like, no, I'm at work, you know? And you kind of go back to, you know, da-da-da, and you do that enough times that it's like, yeah, I think I go in and out of that vulnerable space kind of in a safer way when I'm tattooing, that almost kind of is almost reflected in D&D, where it's like, okay, pull back because this isn't, you know, my story, this is the story, and I'm part of it.
And you know, I exactly the same. Not to I guess stumble on my own words, because what tattooers do is very intimate, and even though like there's jokes, or you know, you'll have like a smaller like silhouette tattoo, or you know, you'll do words on somebody, or you know, that doesn't diminish the experience that person is getting that tattoo for. Like I do stand by
Yeah.
like some of my dumbest tattoos are some of my favorites because the story that goes behind them. And when people ask like what's the weirdest tattoo that you've done, I'm always like, oh, I tattooed till sweat drops down my balls on this middle-aged woman's ribs once. But the second part of that story is like it's a memorial for a loved one because that was like a song they would party to. And so like even though that's like, oh wow, why would you get that? It's like those memories correlated with those lyrics. It's not about the funniness of the tattoo. It's about the funny moments that they have with that person.
Yeah.
And so you correlate that to like within D&D. It's like you're not experiencing real memories, but you're experiencing real feelings, and they created by real memories that are living in your mind. I think it's when you're invested and you've made a really connection with the people around you, or you trust the people that you're playing at the table with, it becomes that much easier to let your friends see your true feelings.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Big time. And I mean, like, it was literally right off the bat at the beginning of this episode. I was like, oh, there are tears about to happen. And I was like, oh, am I going to break that fast? But, we're telling an emotional story, and, Dara as a character has her own, specific stuff that, is emotional for her, is emotional for me, and obviously is emotional to us and people watching. And, I'm just very grateful to be in this group of people where that vulnerability feels incredibly safe, where like I can allow myself to feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine that being on all the time at work, sometimes you don't have an outlet yourself to open up and be heard. Because you're always the one with the open ear. And I mean, that happens in a lot of, hairstylists and so on that are those people that listen to people's stories. And this is one of those places where there is a safe space with people that you've chosen, the family you've chosen, not the family you have necessarily, to be able to share those stories or share, not even those stories, but just the emotions. To be able to kind of let go and be vulnerable and
It's like almost like emotional practice,
Yeah.
It's like you go through some things with, these people you spend so much time with, and like all of a sudden, like you're so invested, it feels so real. And then, when you find yourself out in life and you're dealing with real emotions, and, it's just like really good practice for yourself, I feel like, to like make yourself vulnerable and let that stuff come out, and, just doing that with your friends while being creative, just like translates into your real life. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Just a last caveat on that is like I have always expressed that. Like I tried to get a D&D club at the high school I grew up in, and I remember telling everybody, I was like, if you want to become stronger, you work out. If you want to become a better artist, you draw more. If you want to, do anything, it's about repetition. And you don't get to practice social situations, and then this is that opportunity. You get to practice those emotions, practice those social situations with consequence, but not real life consequence. And it's very therapeutic, and I think that especially like as a teenager, it got me through a lot. As an adult, it gets me through a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cosign, big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just work out your muscles, you gotta work out your emotions.
Yeah, 100 push-ups and
Your
1,000
muscles.
push-ups a day.
1,000 emotions. That's what it takes.
Yeah, and I mean, RealmSmith, we experienced loss a couple years ago with one of our cast members, and it'll again, being around the table allows us to come together and share those emotions in ways that people typically aren't allowed to, and it's super special, and the amount of times that I hear in a given month people sending us messages saying, you saved my life, or I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for RealmSmith, and I was considering certain things, and so on and so forth. It's not something that you think about because we're just playing a game. Hey, we're gonna go play D&D for a week. How awesome is that, or whatever? But what we're able to show people that it's okay to feel is so incredibly wonderfully important.
You care if I ask a question?
Of course,
Just a
of
group?
course.
So we're talking about being vulnerable at tables, and when you watch something like this, you're like, oh well, that's just like kind of a theatric situation, like we're in front of cameras and stuff. But this is how my home games, like this is the best moments in my home games even. Is there anything of people watching or people that are interested in D&D that you would tell them that may be able to help them become more any tips you could have on someone to help be either vulnerable or be more invested in what they're trying to create and be more vulnerable within themselves at the table specifically?
Shoot.
Because I think it's just
tiny question, huh?
That's a small
25
one.
words or less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send a message.
Send message spells.
Tell how you built your persona, because I think that's what a lot of it comes from. Do you build off of your own memories, or do you build off of implanted ones? That
I think a little bit of both, man. I think a lot of people spend time with their character, like building it out, thinking about like who they are, like what they do. But it's like just like real life, like you're not like all the things you do, right? It's like who you are is like how you maintain and like all of your emotional experiences, and like I really think about that when I'm like putting my character together or like extrapolating ideas, like what makes McGee the way is, like why is he sarcastic, like is he like maybe like trying to hide something or vulnerability, or is he just a jerk, like like I want to know why too, and so I think like spending time and investing in yourself and your character and thinking like not just what cool accolades he did that makes him like the badass fighter or whatever, but like what parts of him make him like a person in this world, like is he affected by something, like does he have emotional connections, does he have like loose ends, skeletons in his closet, because like everyone does. So like I think maybe if you like try to work on parts like that, not to get too off track, but I think if you work on parts like that and think about stuff like that for your character, maybe like situationally when you get there, all of those things are kind of loaded in you already, and you're not like looking for like, man, how do I feel about this thing, because you kind of already know, like I'm dealing with this issue in my past, and now like everyone has to see me, and that's like even like talking like indirectly about myself tonight, so yeah.
Yes, I fully co-sign that. I think like when people tell me about their characters and what they can do, I'm genuinely not interested at all in them telling me how much damage they can do in a round. Like that's not the most interesting part at all to me. Like, tell me about the spell, tell me about the skill that you chose that's not the most mechanically advantageous, and tell me why your character learned how to do that instead of learning how to throw a fireball. Why did you learn Featherfall? Why did you learn any cantrip that's not Eldritch Blast or Fireball? What's the skill set that isn't the most like video game balanced? Yeah. Like, and what does that say about your character?
Yeah, and like you can, to use the colloquial term, like you can min-max, but still build off of it. Be like, all right, well I'm min-maxing.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I chose Fireball, but why did my character choose Fireball over X, Y, or Z? Well, you could build a story off of that. Ask those questions, make those answers to building what it was.
Well, and vulnerability too, right? Like there's not a lot of vulnerability in like being the best. Like if you max yourself out and you're trying to avoid getting hurt essentially, right? Like if you're emotionally doing that to your character too, like D&D is about making mistakes, about getting hurt. If you want to be vulnerable, you got to be able to like lower the guard down and be like, you just need to be the best at everything, and just be willing to like let things go wrong, and be not perfect.
Says the guy who has like 4 18s for his like actual
For his IRL stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh sure.
Yeah. And I think some of the most vulnerable and incredible moments we've had on stream, and this doesn't only go for streaming but also goes for home games, is that you don't necessarily have to pull from your own pain in order to allow people to feel. And some of the most emotional moments were when somebody was playing something that either they can relate to or just that was part of their character and other people around the table relate to. And as a dad, you know, even though I'm not playing a father, I can appreciate and understand a story where somebody is trying to save their son or their child or whatever the case may be. And so I don't think it's like, oh, pull from your pain to make D&D great. I think it's just like watching a movie where an actor does an incredibly convincing job, even though they've never experienced that in their life, of a really touching, amazing opportunity to tell a story. And then through that, other people who relate make that story great.
Empathy.
Empathy,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome. Guys, magic that episode. And I bet y'all didn't cry during Ink Master. I'm just like, I'm so kidding. I'm so kidding. I love it. It just tells you, honestly, how I'm totally joking. I love Paramount. I love Dungeon Master. It's a great
But
show.
like, please don't come for us.
Yeah, don't come first. But no, honestly, it just tells you how innate and special what we're doing here is, and it's not just about playing D&D on camera. It really is about, you know, opening up our hearts and being vulnerable and being able to kind of feel at the same time.
Yeah.
And I love you guys for it.
And also,
I
you
love
gotta
you,
make
man.
pulling finger jokes because
Yes,
Yeah.
and you have
Because you
to.
can't handle it
Because you
anymore.
can't.
because
Yep.
I can't handle
Emotions.
You're like, that's enough.
All right.
Enough feels for one day.
We're very mature.
Love you guys. We will see you for episode 3 next week. Love you.
Bring your tissues.
Be good.